The first shoot of humility is simplicity. And when simplicity exists in a person, there also exist love, sacrifice, kindness, magnanimity, and reverence. A simple person possesses purity of soul and an uninquiring trust in God. Simplicity was Adam's state before the fall, when he saw all things as pure, because he was clothed in the grace of God. Geronda, when it is said, grace dwells in simplicity, does this refer to divine grace? Of course, the simple and guileless person, because he has humility, receives grace from God, who himself is simple and good by nature. Geronda, is it possible for someone to walk in simplicity and yet have pride? That is impossible. Pride does not exist in the person who possesses true simplicity. Is it possible for someone to imitate certain outward expressions of a simple person without actually possessing true simplicity? Yes, someone may pretend to be simple in order to achieve what he wants. Inside the simplicity of the one who plays the role of a simple person in order to accomplish his own goal, there exists the crudest cunning. It is as though an old man were to wear the socks of a small child, so that others would indulge him as they indulge a little child. But the person who possesses true simplicity also possesses honesty and discernment. Geronda, sometimes I think I behave with simplicity, but people tell me that I behaved with insolence. How can I distinguish simplicity from insolence? Simplicity is one thing, and insolence is another. Insolence satisfies the worldly man. That is, you behave rudely and satisfy your egoism. You say to yourself, I put the other person in his place. This gives you a worldly satisfaction which in reality does not satisfy the soul. Simplicity, on the other hand, gives spiritual rest and leaves a sense of relief within the heart. Geronda, people tell me that I behave superficially, yet I think I behave with simplicity. Listen carefully. When we speak of simplicity, we do not mean behaving foolishly. You are confusing things. You speak without thinking and imagine that this is simplicity. You have a certain natural simplicity, but you lack wisdom. And although you are not childish in mind, you behave like a child. Fortunately, the sisters know you and do not misinterpret you. Can a person truly be simple and yet his behavior disturb others? If someone says or does something with true simplicity, even if it could be misunderstood, the other person will not misunderstand him, because the simple person has the grace of God and does not cause scandal, but the one who lacks simplicity and speaks with worldly politeness can drive you to irritation. Natural simplicity is what a little child possesses. When a child does something wrong, you scold him and he cries. But if afterward you give him a little toy car, he forgets everything. He does not analyze why you scolded him earlier and then gave him the toy, because the child acts with the heart, whereas the grown man acts with reason. There are adults who naturally possess a certain simplicity. Is this a virtue? Yes, but natural simplicity, like all natural virtues, needs purification. A naturally simple person has innocence and kindness, but he also possesses childish cunning. For example, he may not think evil about his neighbor, yet if he must choose between two things, he will take the better one for himself and leave the worse for the other person. It is like a piece of gold that contains other alloys in small measure, and therefore must pass through the furnace in order to become pure gold. Likewise, the heart must be purified from every form of cunning, every selfish interest, and many other passions, so as to attain the state of perfect simplicity. In the true love of Christ, in that state of simplicity and purity, there develops the innocence of childhood, which Christ asks of us when he says, "Become as little children." But in our own times, the more worldly politeness spreads, the more simplicity, true joy, and the natural smile disappear. I remember an old monk from the Scete of Iviron, Father Pachomius. No matter how great his sorrow was, the mere sight of him drove sadness away. And if you went to him intending to speak at length about your troubles, you forgot them all. Everything passed away. He had rosy cheeks and laughed like a little child. He was an old man with the face of a small child. Even if the world itself had collapsed, he would still have laughed. Such genuine joy! He knew neither letters nor Byzantine chant apart from Christ is risen, which he sang at Pascha. Whenever he came to the church of the Skate on feast days, he never sat in the choir stall, but always stood even during all-night vigils, saying the Jesus prayer. He had an ascetic spirit and great magnanimity. If you asked him, "Father Pachomios, what part of the service are they at?" he would reply, "Psalms, the fathers are singing psalms." He called everything psalms. This old man was exceedingly simple and full of grace. He had been freed from the passions and thus had become like a child without malice. If a person does not cast off childish egoism, childish pride, and childish stubbornness while still young, but remains in a childish state, he may reach old age still demanding the treatment of a small child. Therefore the Apostle Paul says, "Be not children in understanding, but be children in malice." The simple person is without evil and without cunning. He transforms both evil and ugliness into good. He always has good thoughts concerning others. He is not foolish, but assumes that others think in the same good way that he himself thinks. Geronda, give us an example. Have I not told you about Father Haralambos, who once lived at the monastery of Kutlumuziu? He had been the librarian, but eventually they removed him from that duty because he never locked the library door. "Why do you need keys for the doors?" he would say. "Let people read the books." He possessed such simplicity and purity that it never even entered his mind that there were people who might steal books. The simple person, because he always has good thoughts concerning others, sees everyone as good. I also remember another elder, Father Theoctistos, from the monastery of Dionysiou. What simplicity he had! One evening he had remained with another monk at Caries, at the monastery's guest house. Late at night, someone knocked on the door, and Elder Theoctistos ran to open it. "Leave him," the monk said to him. "Do not open the door at this hour so that we may have some peace." "And how do you know who it is? Perhaps it is Christ himself. Let us open the door." And he went and opened it. You see, the simple person always places the good thought first and always expects what is good. Geronda, I think simplicity means behaving as one inwardly feels. Is that so? It depends on the environment in which a person lives. In order to behave with simplicity, one must find a suitable environment. In the world, especially in today's world, one must be careful how one behaves. But in a monastery or within a family, there is no justification for lacking simplicity. It is exhausting when simplicity and trust do not exist. In such a case, in order to say a single thing to another person, you need a prologue, an epilogue, and endless explanations. In this way, life becomes a burden, a true martyrdom. But where simplicity exists, you say to the other person, "Sit down now," and he sits down. "Now you are not needed, go." And he goes, without your fearing that he will misinterpret you. Simplicity gives rest, whereas the lack of simplicity causes exhaustion. Geronda, what does it mean? Acquire freedom in your dealings with others so that you may be freed from turmoil. It means to acquire simplicity in your relationship with others so that thoughts do not confuse and entangle you. When you express with simplicity what you feel, you yourself are liberated, and you help others as well. Once I was traveling to Athens in the car of an acquaintance in order to resolve some matter, and another gentleman was with us. Since I become ill in cars, the driver opened a window and the air inside became cold. "Are you perhaps cold?" I asked them. "No, no," they replied. But after a little while I saw one of them shivering and putting on his jacket. Then I told them, Say with simplicity if you are cold, lest one of you become sick, and I will tell you when I begin to feel ill. Thus the journey became easy for everyone. If I had felt ill and said nothing, while the other man was cold and also said nothing, perhaps one of us would have arrived sick in Athens. Therefore you too should behave with simplicity, otherwise you will always remain anxious lest the other person become upset or scandalized. In fact, through such behavior, a person becomes upset and loses his peace, and his conduct becomes unnatural. Geronda, in front of others I cannot do even the simplest thing. Is this shyness or pride? Sometimes God gives a person excessive shyness in order to restrain him and prevent him from falling into something harmful. For who knows how far he might deviate from the straight path if he did not possess this restraint. What you must do now is to be a little attentive and entrust yourself firmly into the hands of God. Do not close yourself up within yourself and torment yourself in a merely human way, because hidden within such human bondage there lies egoism. Do you not see how naturally I behave? At one moment like a grandfather, at another like a father, at another like an older brother, and at another like a child. Geronda, I keep thinking about how the other person will interpret what I say, and I fear lest he misunderstand me. You short-circuit yourself because you lack simplicity. Listen, acquire simplicity of heart so that you may grow spiritually. Receive with simplicity the corrections that are given to you and strive to amend yourself, while also asking for God's help. Someone may tell you that in a certain situation you behaved unwisely. Another time, in a similar situation, you should think, at that time they told me I behaved unwisely. Now I must be careful to behave wisely. In this way you gradually acquire experience, correct yourself, advance, and grow spiritually. Likewise, the other person learns from your conduct. God sees your struggle, and inwardly you become confident and peaceful. Simplicity together with zealous ascetic struggle and trust in God bring inner peace and joy, and fill the soul with hope and consolation. Geronda, does the study of books and knowledge help a person to know God? Listen to me carefully. When someone works spiritually and reaches a good spiritual state, he sees certain things very clearly through divine illumination, even without having learned them beforehand from books. And indeed, he sees them more clearly than others who have read all the books in the world. Through inward purity he sees very far and very deeply, because he has departed from the worldly trajectory and now moves along the spiritual one within the realm of mysteries. All those who have acquired simplicity and inward purity see supernatural things as very simple and natural, because with God all things are simple, just as he himself is utterly simple, and as his Son revealed to us upon the earth through his holy simplicity. He does not use one greater power for things above nature and another lesser power for ordinary things, but the same power for all things. So then, can a person know the mysteries of God even without much study? Yes, if he possesses holy simplicity, he can not only know the mysteries of God, but also live them. Do you remember that very simple monk who was deemed worthy to eat together with Christ? Before becoming a monk, he had been a shepherd, and the only thing that concerned him was how to be saved. Once, in the region where he lived, a hermit passed by and told him, "If you wish to be saved, walk upon the straight path." He took these words literally. So he set out upon a road and walked straight ahead for 3 days until at last he arrived at a monastery. There the abbot, seeing his longing for salvation, immediately made him a monk and assigned him to serve in the church. One day, while he was cleaning the church, the abbot passed by and advised him to do his work carefully. After listening to the advice, the monk pointed toward the crucified Savior and asked, "Geronda, who is the one hanging there? I have been here so many days, but I have never seen him come down to eat or drink anything." Hearing this, the abbot marveled at his simplicity and said to him, I punished him and made him stay up there because he was not doing his work properly. The monk listened without saying anything. That evening he took his portion of food and locked himself inside the church. Standing at the feet of the crucified one, he said with pain, "Come down, brother, so that we may eat together." Then Christ came down and ate together with the simple monk, after which he promised that he would take him into his Father's house to delight there eternally. And indeed, a few days later, this simple monk fell asleep in peace. You see, he possessed complete ignorance according to the world, yet what he was deemed worthy to experience came through the great simplicity and purity he possessed. In order for the grace of God to dwell within a person, there must exist within him this absence of cunning, this purity. God gives himself to those who possess purified simplicity. When a person advances in simplicity and purity, together with fervent faith and reverence, he is then deemed worthy of divine experiences and comes to know the mysteries of God without possessing worldly knowledge. For then the Holy Trinity dwells within him, and through the divine illumination he possesses, he easily finds the keys to divine meanings and interprets them in the Spirit of God, simply and naturally, without the intellectual's headache. When we cleanse our wicked heart, out of which proceed all evils, we shall become pure and humble vessels of divine grace, and the Holy Trinity will rest within us. I too shall pray for you, and you also pray for me, that Christ and the Mother of God may purify our hearts, so that we may see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.